Love it. Okay. I just want to make sure I am recording. Okay, I am recording. It should be. Cool. So cute. Well, we have a guest. So.
Hello. He's got his beach.
But yeah, okay. So as we know, our dear Gretchen here wrote this amazing article for smart contracts, which I thought I had a little bit of knowledge before, but now that I've been like reading it a few times, I'm like, wait, I like literally didn't know half of these things. So I just thought it was super interesting. But yeah, so title NFTs use smart contracts, but what exactly are they? So I guess we're gonna find that out now. And yeah, so the sales of works on the blockchain describes promises within the code, but it's not that simple, and we're gonna dive into that. Contracts can be romantic, as in marriage, or prestigious, such as the gallery organization of an artist. But what does it mean for a contract to be smart? And then, so interesting fact, actually, I didn't know this, but smart contracts were first described in 1990s. And I think a lot of the times we think of smart and we think, okay, very techie, very recent. So this kind of like it came as a bit of a shock to me, being like, well, I didn't know like this was really a thing already in the 1990s. But it was, coined and described as a set of promises specified in digital form, which very broad, I guess. But yeah, and in most cases, it does refer to an autonomous software that automatically runs when conditions are met. So if X is true, then Y is done. Kind of like doing logic stuff and everything. But yeah, so like for one of the examples in crypto sense would be if the price of Bitcoin reaches 100K, then it sells a particular thing, or in a normal sense, it would be if London reaches 35 degrees, then order a fan on Amazon. And this was a really interesting example, which I didn't actually know that much. I mean, considering I went to university in Philadelphia, so I should know more about the Balance Foundation. But so yeah, so Gretchen noted that if a smart contract had been in place for the Balance Foundation, which is oh, hi.
Hello, thank you for joining us.
Oh, she's connecting to the audio. Where we've just started. Oh, she's gone. Okay, we'll just continue on that. But yeah, so if the smart contract was there for Barnes Foundation, then which obviously I'm not sure if you know much about Barnes Foundation. It is like world's best collection of like post-impressionist works, like incredible. If you have the chance to drive down to Philly, like definitely go see it. But yeah. So, if the smart contract had been in place, like it would still be in private's hand right now, according to what the Barnes will did say. But obviously, I guess it wasn't a smart contract. There's some smart contract loopholes, like B ways, whereas smart contract is very much like a X and Y. So
let's document it. Okay. Yeah.
But sorry, what were you saying?
There's a really good Netflix documentary, or I don't know if it's Netflix or but it was on Netflix at one point, called The Art of the Steal. And it's about the Barnes Foundation will and how it like still didn't like it ended up being taken basically by the city of Philadelphia, but it also means that like you can go to Philly and check it out.
Yeah. But yeah, so and cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin can be trusted in the absence of government backing because every transaction is publicly documented and verified by those who are incentivized to get it right. So not sure if you know that much about blockchain, but obviously blockchain, one of the main goals was that to get rid of the middle people, there would be no government. We are just all in this community together doing the right thing and letting the smart contract do their thing, which is the rules we set first in the first place. And so yeah, and known as the distributed ledger technology of blockchain, we now have the ability to enforce these contracts with the same transparency. And of course, like everyone can see it's a smart contract. And yeah, that's why smart contracts are much more important, because we don't have enough transparency in this world out here, where we do have the government, we have all these big organizations. So yeah. And coming down to mainly more diving into NFTs and the relations to smart contracts. So NFTs are minted through smart contracts, which then assigns the buyer the ownership And if you ever transfer it or resell it, it gets reassigned through a smart contract. And so at a basic level, smart contracts act as a tool to implement a sale agreement. So kind of very simply, for example, us three and two other girls on our team, like we have a smart contract in place for this project so that whenever we do sell a crypto mermaid, we all will have an income to it. And like we don't need to be like, Gretchen, transfer me money. Gretchen already has this in the smart contract, and Gretchen can be asleep and we will receive the money. So
I can go asleep, I can go missing,
exactly,
fall out.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like direct, like there's no like you said, there's no middleman.
Yeah. So like, I guess because normally, like, let's say if Gretchen had to transfer me money, then like half the time, if I'm a sketchy person, then the bank would like reject it or whatever. But I guess having a smart contract, like no one can do anything about it. Like, this is it. Like, I'm taking the money kind of thing.
And it's a really, I think for our Crypto Mermaid project in particular, it's something I'm really excited to be dealing with this team, because it's a way of saying like, oh, I want you to financially, have a percentage of this, the majority of it's going towards things like, like this, or, the book, other events, pool parties, etc., where we also talk about crypto. But the idea that everyone gets paid directly is, I think, just a really proper representation of like how the project's becoming successful. And that, I'm happy if people trust me, but like, it's a bigger project than, just me. It's coming out of, my company and our studio. And if, let's say, I decide I want to go be a hermit and live in the woods, you guys keep getting paid.
Thank goodness.
Or if I'm asleep, because Monique.
I didn't go your extreme end, so it's fine. But so yeah, and I guess in a lesser crypto context, which Gretchen had as an example, is basically like a vending machine, because you don't need to actually go through a person or any organization. And as long as it proves that yes, you have the money, then you get whatever you want from the machine. And another thing that a smart contract ensures is that NFTs cannot be divided, and that the digital assets are one of a kind and non-replicable, which is the NF of the NFT, so that you're the only person that have it. And I think
and this actually, this happens in the physical art world some, where like a dealer will like buy a abstract painting and like cut it up into pieces and sell pieces of it. And then obviously the artist is like, well, that's not how I intended it, but
and I mean, it definitely solves a lot of problems that we see a lot of times now in contemporary art, where like someone can bring a work into an auction house, and there is nothing that official that can verify it, other than people who I guess are experts in the works, or like but I guess having this is more of like you have it as like on the data, where it's been. And I think that's another thing that's really important in art, where when people collect, like they want to know where the works has been, like has it been in another museum, has it been somewhere else? And everything being on blockchain just means you can go online and just see everything by yourself. So that's why another thing.
Yeah, it's all public.
So the transparency, like crypto is amazing. Like,
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so and a lot of times smart contract can contain like utilities, such as receiving the physical asset along with the NFT, the digital asset. Let Me Check with the Wife is a movie.
No, it's an NFT project, actually.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I just saw it was 2022, and I was like, oh, maybe. Like,
it's
okay.
But yeah, it's a performance project, so it actually probably more like a movie than anything else. But its NFT form is and it's by Anna and Dija, which are operator, and they have pre-purchased a crypto mermaid out of it. So it's pretty cool.
Incredible. But yeah, so here, I guess from this example, I learned something I never knew before, is that you. By using this whole utilities aspect of smart contract and NFTs, you can now artists can then reverse the obligation from the artist to collector. So whereas utility usually has the artist being like, okay, I can promise you I'll give you something in the future. Now artists can also ensure that collectors are now, if they're in this smart contract with you, then they also promise be like, okay, I will fund your studio every month. And these again automatically go through, and it's not something, since a lot of these are like, you can't just reverse a smart contract. Artists they don't have to speak to the same collector every month being like, oh, you promised this last month, but like you didn't do it, like kind of thing. So yeah, it's I guess another way to be like, okay, this is like what we've agreed on, which is it's gonna go through my first agreement.
So Bernadine, who I maybe should listen to this voice message of, but anyway, who's the one who told me she's running late. She works for Accrual, which is Art Basel's owned company that they're making like a blockchain for the art world. And one of the things that they're trying to very much do, I mean, it's private blockchain, but they're having to be like, when a piece sells, everyone gets paid automatically. Like instead of waiting for the gallerist and the art dealer and like whatever else to like pay you, it just happens.
Yeah.
Which is definitely not how the art world works.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think especially in the art world, a lot of things are not written contracts. Like a lot of things are just like a verbal thing. It is very hard sometimes. Like I know plenty of like dealers or advisors who are like, oh yeah, the gallery owes me like so and so much money, and like they're gonna take like a year to pay me back, or just try and get away with it, that kind of thing. Whereas having things like this, like it's a lot more secure and everything. I mean, although it's very like an ideal way of like thinking of crypto and everything, this is what these things were built out to do. Unless someone bad manipulates it, which we'll get onto, because now I guess we're turning on to like technology and trust, which is very important in this decentralized society. But yeah, so trust and mediated by technology or governments, which have the power to inflict punishment, does not scale and is subject to our biases and prejudices. E-commerce did not hit the mainstream until technologies of trust like PayPal both took on and mitigated the risk of fraud. And I think I'm sure a lot of us can all kind of relate, since we all kind of, you know, went through the stage of like never buying anything on the internet to now I like Amazon every single day. Like you now, for example, you just kind of have that trust because you've seen all these people have been using PayPal, or like Revolut or whatever. But yeah, so yeah, there are some companies looking to do the same with smart contracts, but there is that risk where you risk being hacked by whoever wants to exploit your business and whatever you are doing. So yeah, as Gretchen has pointed out, the truth is smart contracts are not trustless. They simply just raise like a different trust concerns and change who we trust. And obviously, you know, as you know, like coding, there will be bugs, like, and people are coming in to hack whatever you're doing. And decentralized finance, DeFi, which you hear a lot in the crypto and Web3, refers to, you know, blockchain applications that cut out traditional banks from financial products and services like loans, savings, and swaps, you know, things that we really encounter every day, but we have to go through so much hassle because we need to go through these banks. So we need to go through all these people who can approve every individual person that goes up to them. But yeah, however, most of the code used to make DeFi services useful is not actually as secure as blockchain code. And that makes it even easier for hackers to come in and access and take all the money that's in your wallet. Which is not good.
And it's not exactly what happened, but like one of the things that happened with FTX is that like the blockchain was still operating correctly, but we were basically all, well, not me personally, thank God, like trusting the other code that was basically doing gymnastics with the crypto before it got into the blockchain. And like that's what could be manipulated and that's what could be stolen from, and you know, wasn't transparent, but it made it a lot easier to use, but at the same time it wasn't actually using the technology for what it's good for.
Yeah. And well, to trust code is to always trust the person who wrote it as well. And also the system that the code runs on. So especially, as you know, like blockchain, there are so many different blockchain, like, you know, ETH, like, and as we know also that they don't necessarily all work together all the time. So especially if you come from a non-coding tech background coming into Web3 and be like, I want to do an NFT project, there is one, like so much you have to learn, and two, like a lot of time, you know, if you're learning in such a new space, you are relying on other people to teach you all this. And then again, it's all about trust again, where you like just have to find the right person who you know will not, I guess, screw you over on the contract. But yeah, so if an NFT artist or issuer of a crypto asset runs away with your money without fulfilling their promises, you've been dubbed. But the required trust goes beyond intentional scams, and it also means trusting your own understanding of the system you have chosen to operate in. For NFTs, this doesn't just mean the smart contract. So as we now know, Web3 is a very hard and complicated place. But
as we all know.
yeah, but obviously super exciting because that's why we're doing this now. But yeah, so well, NFTs are often celebrated for making practicable US art dealer and researchers, I can't say his last, Seth Sigalov's 50-year-old manifesto on resale rights, which first popularized the idea that an artist should get a percentage of resale profits on their work, which is obviously something we were just talking about, being like how the smart contract can make sure that happens. And I think a lot of the time, artists, especially when they're not big blue chip artists working with whatever the best galleries and whatever, a lot of time, you know, I mean, galleries are great. I love them. I work at one, but a lot of galleries think in a for-profit mindset, and you know, artists needs to sometimes a lot of time learn a lot of these things to protect themselves. And hence again, you got to trust the right people when you don't know what you're doing in the space.
And even like it's interesting too, because like you could trust like a gallerist could bring you on, but then they could leave the gallery, and the gallery is a business.
Yeah,
like this is one of the other things I don't think people see, is like you might trusting the people, but there are still entities that are in control, and the contracts are rarely with people. They're usually with like corporations.
Yeah,
or, you know, LLCs.
And yeah, and another thing I guess I learned from this article I had no clue about was for NFTs to be what is not well understood is that most of NFT resale percentages are not actually coded into the same contract as that compromising the NFT. For NFTs minted with Ethereum, for example, the resale royalties are layered on top of the standard contract and is known as the 721. So when you travel,
and this just happened with OpenSea. OpenSea just like retroactively said that they're not doing resale rights, like, and it's like been this like huge scandal too, because like it just turns out that no one even knew that they could take that away.
Yeah. Oh, especially because I thought all those would have been in the smart contract.
Yeah, like they've literally like taken it away.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's crazy.
I mean, I don't mean to be smiling. I just mean the article was quite prescient.
It's good that I sold everything in my OpenSea account. But yeah, so when traveling to another Ethereum-based platform, the standard 721 provisions are recognized, while the additional layer containing the resale royalties may not. So I guess kind of you know, exactly what you're saying of OpenSea. And it is unclear what would happen should a dispute be raised and brought to court. Legal literacy and its coded corollary often require expertise outside of the range of most artists and collectors. Which again is saying, you know, a lot of time artists do not come from a background where they will naturally know tech, except for you.
Like as we were just saying, like the amount that I learn when I'm writing these is a lot. So like I'm literally relearning as
but yeah, in general, I mean, you know, even if you bring it to court, like I think with such a new technology in general, like it's very, very hard to, a court does not know what to say. And like, you know, there are no solid rules and laws right now that are on Web3. And you know, I previously even went to a talk by a university professor who's like very hardcore in NFTs, and she tries to teach NFTs, crypto, and all that. And she was saying it's so hard to even publish a paper. And you know, she wants to inform everyone about it, but to publish a paper, she then needs to have peer reviews because it's meant to be scientific. So you have peer reviews, and you need to get approval. That takes 2 or 3 years. By the time these 2 or 3 years have passed, like yes, we already have all these NFT platforms coming up, giving their own version of education and everything. And other times, you know, the professor is even saying, I want to implement this into my curriculum, which is even more impossible because you don't have those solid resources yet to then also make it into part of the students' education. So yeah, so that's another thing, you know, it's very hard. You know, you always hear about all these things happening in Web3, bad things going wrong. There is actually, like, you know, and people say there's nothing you can do, but that is in a way true, that there is actually nothing you can do right now a lot of the times, except if you can track the person down, you can hopefully ask for the money back. But yeah, so and I guess moving a little bit to social contracts, I guess smart contracts, it is a contract between 2 people. So yeah, in the non-technical legal systems reigning in governments, there is often a gap between the spirit and letter of the law. Expecting that we can make contracts smart belies the fact that most of life cannot be executed like code without unintended consequences due to nuance, exceptions, and contradictions. Smart contracts forgo the opportunity of forgiveness for change and for relationships to get redefined. And I love this example, but Les Miserables, Jean Valjean would have been instantly charged for stealing if it was decided by a smart contract, instead of being forgiven by the priest. And so contracts, they often make it as much about making it difficult and expensive to leave a relationship as it is about increasing trust. And I guess, I don't know, is this the proper, like, does it align in a way that, is that the same, that because of the smart contract, if people's money gets stolen, that's another reason why they kind of also can't get it back in?
Yeah, well, there's almost like when you go into a contract or into that kind of relationship, whether it's a smart contract or like a legal contract, that the process for undoing it is impossible or complicated, right? And so I think that causes people to be more cautious upon entering them, or should be more cautious upon entering them. But it's not always just about, it's almost like about creating a switching cost as well, right? Like, you have to like if I want to switch galleries, or you want to like switch husbands or something, like you have to like, there's a cost involved because there's a contract, and not just like money, but like time and undoing and untangling of these things that have been like set in motion.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with smart contract, things get like set in motion.
Yeah, and a lot of times, since it's irreversible, I think even if the original coder who wanted to really do something about it, it's difficult or impossible, I guess. But yeah, so to date, the most impressive comment on issues of trust and smart contracts is contract killers. No, site specific. Another artwork, sorry. But this site specific augmented reality AR series was created by the artist Nancy Baker Cahill and collaboratively was developed with the art attorney Sarah Conley Odenkirk on Snark.art. The work uses a contractual vocabulary of blockchain technology to highlight broken social contracts and is visually an AR handshake that dissolves into thin air upon contact. It is accompanied by 3 essays on the topic of contracts, and despite having been released in 2020, the advice within them is yet to be heeded. But yeah, super interesting. And yeah, I guess one of the other things that I just kind of wanted to touch upon was, again, we were saying a lot of time, if artists wants to have a project and they need to have the smart contract component, obviously we were saying, who do you trust? And I previously also went to a museum institution, and they've been doing a lot of Web3 research and development. And one of the talks I went to we're mainly talking about the laws within Web3 and, I guess we have 10 minutes on Web3. And one of the really important things was about intellectual property, because a lot of times they're thinking, who actually has intellectual property? Is it the person implementing the contract, or is it actually the artist? And obviously in the real world, art world, artists don't have to think about that, because everyone's like, okay, you painted on this canvas, like obviously intellectual property is yours. But a lot of time, what if the artist doesn't even know how to read that smart contract? They have no clue what that person wrote, and they kind of just go with it. And I understand that a lot of time, because obviously when NFT was booming and everything, a lot of artists were probably offered the opportunity, and it's a very attractive opportunity because you hear about people making so much money and everything. But then it gets to a point where you're like, okay, but can I actually trust any of these people, considering I don't know anything? And it's the fact that it's really hard to even find crypto education anywhere out there that is for sure like benefiting you. Because I think a lot of exchange marketplace platforms, they do a lot of education. I personally find them very well, they kind of just like help you understand to the point that you buy things from the platform. So that's another reason why we have Crypto Mermaids, because we think it's very important for people to actually understand what's going on. And we understand that people do have that fear before jumping into a completely crazy space. And I think a lot of people know there are so many opportunities in Web3, and everyone knows that, yes, it can be so profitable. But I think we've always just been hearing all these news being like, oh no, crypto is like crazy, like it's so bad, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, like it's a mysterious space. It's fun. And I think a lot of time, you know, you just gotta learn and like, you know, educate yourself, because or look for people like us who are willing to educate other people. But yeah, and so yeah, so that's the end of our whole article. But I do want to kind of wrap it up with some of the definitions, which if you do like these definitions, we have a full glossary that I've put up on the website under the book club. But sorry, let me pull up the definitions. But yeah, so some of these I picked out mainly because it touched on the article, but also so okay. The first one we have is, I'm so sorry, it's like not coming out. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so decentralization, another thing we were talking about earlier, on basically, you know, blockchain, the whole thing is decentralized. And the definition I basically try to, it's hard to define things in crypto because it's a very broad thing. But yeah, decentralization, own system of property rights and self-enforcing, where control and decisions are made from a distributed network instead of a centralized entity. And you know, leading on to our second definition, the blockchain, because blockchain is decentralized. And yeah, so a blockchain, a shared immutable ledger that facilitates the recording of transactions in a network. And to do these transactions in a decentralized ways, it's like we were saying, no banks in the middle, blah blah. And leading to that, I was saying, you know, blockchain is a shared and immutable ledger. What is a ledger? A ledger, just a record of all transactions. And like we were saying, it's so important to have the transparency when everything's decentralized, so that everyone involved in the community sees everything that's going on and knows that no one's messing up everything. And obviously we talked about smart contract this whole time, but I didn't give you a proper definition yet. So the smart contract definition I would give you is a set of digital promises, including protocols within which the parties perform on the promises through computerized algorithms. But yeah, and now you have the article to tell you the full definition. And I guess since we're launching our project soon, I wanted to also talk about what mining was, because that's what you would need to do when you try and get one of our NFTs.
Minting or mining?
Minting. Oh, sorry. That's okay. That's true. Okay, no, it was minting actually. But sorry. Okay, no, I guess that's right. Sorry, we'll scrap the minting and the mining. Yes. But another thing,
the crypto will already be mined for you, we promise.
Yeah. But I guess another thing is when you do make any transactions in Web3, or specifically when you do try and get one of our crypto mermaids, is that you will have something called a gas fee. And gas fee is I guess a blockchain transaction fee paid to the network validators for their services to the blockchain. And because blockchain is, again, like I said, decentralized, it's just a bunch of people working together, and those people get the money for their service for helping run the blockchain and everything. So that's just something you just have to be aware of. Like, don't freak out if you're like, oh no, why am I paying more than like what's listed for the NFT? It's just a gas fee that you just have to pay to the whole network. But yeah, and I'm sure that's something
it's particularly low on Tezos.
Yeah,
even if there is one.
Yeah. So like, you know,
I'm learning a lot. Tezos is a new blockchain for me. So it's kind of exciting to be doing this project. Because I think you and I both have done more with the Ethereum blockchain, right?
Yeah.
So like it's
and Ethereum has very high gas fees. like half the time there are things I've bought where I'm like, the gas fee is higher than the actual thing I'm buying. But that's just because gas fee goes up when a lot of people are on the blockchain all making transactions at the same time. Hence, people need to get paid more because there are more people working to keep this blockchain running. But yeah, thanks for listening. Do you have any questions about the article or anything in general, our project?
Yeah, that was awesome. Oh my gosh, I learned a lot. so I was curious, like the because it's so like revolutionary, like specifically like in the art world and like industry similar. Like the other one that comes to mind is like the for like a musician or whatever. Um, it would be like obviously revolutionary, but how do you how does the because if there's like no way to really like enforce the smart contract as of right now, or is it did I miss that? Is there because you said like in like court and stuff like how does a smart contract apply like legally, and how would that have to change in order for it to be um like a real contract if I'm like a legally binding, or is it already? That was I was a little confused on that part.
It's not at all a legally binding contract. If you,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like a de facto state, and it probably would be an input within a dispute in court, but that's one of the really odd things about it is it's not actually legally a contract, and different countries and different municipalities have different rules for these things. So it's yeah, like you can smart contract to do illegal things, and you can smart contracts that can contradict each other, and you can do smart contracts that contradict the law. And there's no you know, the system that we still live in as citizens is still a legal system, even though algorithms might execute automatically.
Okay, so it doesn't apply in that realm. It's just like it's
like musicians do both and artists will do both. Like if they're putting a gallery or somebody else into a contract, they might put it both into the smart contract and into a legal contract.
okay, so it's like because it's you said it was like a written, or it's like a promise to I don't know how to word it, but it's like it's a transaction of like rather than it's a publicized transaction of like of a commitment between the artist and the other person engaged into the smart contract.
Well, it happens automatically, right? So like on a contract, it's an obligation that if I get paid, I give you 50%. But with
Yeah.
the minute I get paid, you automatically get the 50%. So that, you know, it would just happen.
Okay, so because it's pre-established, then it like it negates all the like you said, like the delay, and like if someone like promises to like pay what you call it, like X amount of dollars for like when this sells, it, like you said, someone could be sleeping and you would still get paid as the artist or as whoever's engaged in the smart contract.
Right, but if there was a legal contract that said you get 80% and I was paying you 50, and that's what the smart contract said, you could bring that to court and it would probably be, I'm supposed to pay you 30% more.
Oh, okay, so it does, so so that's what you're saying when it's an input in the like, I see. Okay, awesome.
And there's no system to make sure they don't contradict. We're going to end this Zoom. I mean, Zoom is going to end this Zoom.
It's gonna end us
soon.
but